The ongoing disgrace over the Trump-era family separation policy. More than 5,000 families were deliberately separated, in many cases for more than a year, under Trump's policy. These cases cry out for reparations. Nearly 5 years ago, the administration of former President Donald Trump launched the most heinous immigration policy in recent history, the separation of kids from their migrant parents when the family was caught trying to enter the United States illegally at the southern border. Yet we rarely talk about the lasting effects of the devastating practice. Where is the public outcry? According to the ACLU, up to 1,000 families remain separated. Sadly, the lack of attention is a reminder that American political immigration crises have a short half-life. The truth is that there are still several pending lawsuits, one based out of Massachusetts, brought by affected parents against the federal government. They seek financial compensation for their children's long-lasting trauma. More than 5,000 families were deliberately separated, in some cases for years, under Trump's policy. These cases cry out for reparations. The question of what the U.S. government owes these families and their children, who suffered unimaginable emotional pain when federal agents separated them with no intention or logistical plan to reunite them, should be permanently nagging all Americans. The family separation policy, known officially as zero tolerance, was officially launched in the spring of 2018 with the goal of deterring illegal immigration. A pilot program had already been implemented in 2017. Undocumented parents, including those seeking asylum, were criminally charged and imprisoned, while their children were handed over to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which placed them in shelters and other care facilities miles from their parents. When President Biden arrived in the White House, many expected he'd settle the lawsuits over the policy, estimated at around 20. He created a family reunification task force and, in 2021, said that the affected families deserved financial damages for the outrageous family separation policy. But then, weeks later, settlement negotiations over monetary compensations were halted. Since then, government lawyers have argued in court that the families are not entitled to cash payments and tried to get the lawsuits dismissed. Lee Gellant, the deputy director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project, is the lawyer who brought the original lawsuit in 2018 that resulted in a federal judge ordering the Trump administration to stop the policy and start reuniting families. Gellant told me that the financial settlement talks fell apart for what were clearly political reasons. Indeed, after a leak to the media suggested that the separated families could receive up to $450,000 for each family member affected, Republicans forcefully pushed back and quickly filed legislation in the Senate to block any payments. While American families are struggling, the president now wants to make millionaires out of people who crossed the border illegally. It's beyond parody, said then Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. And so Biden did a shameful 180. Gellant explained that there are separate ongoing talks to settle his original lawsuit that stopped the policy, but the talks involve things other than cash payments, such as finding the families, reuniting the families back in the U.S., getting them an easy pathway to seek asylum and mental health help, housing, and assistance in finding counsel, etc. That's the bare minimum that the traumatized families deserve. Nearly 2 years ago I wrote about a Guatemalan family of 4 living in Massachusetts who are part of a putative class action lawsuit seeking compensation for having been forcibly separated by the Trump administration for about 5 weeks. Recently, they received good news about the case. A federal judge partially rejected a motion to dismiss the lawsuit from government lawyers, while also denying them a petition to move the case to Texas. The judge allowed our suit to go forward as to the children's claims, said Joe Kakase, an attorney with Todd V. Weld representing plaintiffs in the lawsuit. As for the government's attempt to transfer the case to Texas, Kakase said it was forum shopping. The government attorneys believe they'll get more favorable rulings there. The Guatemalan family, Kakase said, is frustrated because it has taken so long to hold the government accountable for its actions. It's hard to comprehend the scope of the lasting pain inflicted by the forced separations. In a 2022 study about the psychological and emotional trauma the families went through, One dad said the first thing his son asked him when they were reunited was, "How could you let them take me?" The Atlantic's Caitlin Dickerson, who in August published the definitive account, heart-wrenching, almost too hard to read, of the origins of the family separation policy, described how organizations contracted by the federal government to care for newly arrived immigrant minors started getting children with no information about their parents, guardians, or U.S.-based family members, which was unusual. The children were clearly traumatized, confused at best and crying in distress at worst. I think if most people in the United States thought for a moment about what compensation they would deserve if their little child was taken away for months, and they never knew whether they would see the child again, it's doubtful that they would think any amount of money fully compensated them, Gellant said. It's not too late for the Biden administration to do what's right for these families, and that means coming back to the table to negotiate financial restitution.